Alrighty, everyone. Bonjour and bienvenue tout le monde. On behalf of the Fourth Space team and elsewhere event organizers, welcome to this information session and showcase of international fine arts field schools that have been held over the past 2 summers. We are coming to you live from Concordia University's Fourth Space, and those of you unfamiliar with us, let me tell you a little bit about what we do. We collaborate with our university community to connect people to the diverse initiatives, research projects, and dialogues that are in development across the university. So it's our pleasure to take a deep dive with Concordia International and Fine Arts into the exciting opportunities field schools offer. To officially kick us off, it's my pleasure to pass the floor to Dean of Fine Arts, Annie Girin. Welcome, Annie.
Thank you, Anna. Oh, is this on?
It's on.
It's on, good. So thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody. As Anna said, I'm Annie Girin, I'm the Dean of Fine Arts. I would like to start with an acknowledgement. I acknowledge that Concordia University is located on unceded indigenous lands. The Ganyankehaga Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Jojage, or Montreal, is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations, and today it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other people. It seems particularly fitting to start with a land acknowledgement, an event that showcases field schools and the impact that connecting with different people on their own land can have on our students. So I'm pleased to welcome everyone to Elsewhere, a showcase of summer field schools in the Faculty of Fine Arts. I don't know about you, but I've always absolutely loved hearing people talk about their summer travel stories, and especially this year after the pandemic, this being one of the first times in a long time that many of us have managed to travel. So I'm really excited to hear what our students got up to this year in their field schools. And I'm also curious to hear from the faculty members and the other people who were involved how they developed and managed these field schools in other sites. And you know, I'll take the opportunity to give a shout out here to the really great team at Concordia International and to all of the faculty members and the Dean's Office members who are involved in these events. Thank you. Thank you. So over the last several years, the Faculty of Fine Arts has led the way at Concordia in developing international opportunities for students. We've made huge amounts of progress in the last few years in growing our field schools thanks to a gift from the Peter N. Thompson Family Foundation. Our Field School Awards has enabled more students than ever to participate in these extraordinary events. So through these gifts, now we can offer 30 awards of $1,300 per year over the next 10 years. So this is huge for us. Travel is life-changing. It teaches students how to locate themselves in the world. And I believe that travel is actually an essential part of the student experience. But these field schools are a lot more than just study trips or vacations. Field schools are intensive, place-based studios and carefully structured courses. Students attend lectures, they attend workshops, performances, exhibitions, academic seminars, and go to cultural meetings and visits. They exchange knowledge, they use site-specific material, and learn new techniques. They live together, eat together, venture into new landscapes, and into the lives of others across the globe. They also make important professional connections. The role a student inhabits as a field school participant, both on-site and when they return home, expands their future professional prospects and their post-degree successes. In fact, as you'll hear today, in several cases, students have been asked to return to present their work at festivals and conferences in their host countries and beyond. So, what is the secret to a great field school experience? I love what one student wrote in their report, and I'll quote the student: "Be free-spirited, ready to improvise, and explore the world around you." So I encourage you to approach this showcase with the same spirit of adventure and of joy. And with this, I will hand over the mic to our MC, Associate Dean Elaine Cheesley-Patterson.
Hi, everybody. Welcome, and thank you so much for those words, Annie. I love that last quote from the students. I'd like to invite William Chaib, who's the Associate Vice President International, Office of the Vice President Research and Graduate Studies, to say a few words, and we'll get on with it.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Elaine. Bonjour. Good morning. I think we can still say good morning. It's not noon yet. Great to see everyone here in person, and thanks for all those that are joining us virtually. A big shout also to, I think I was told that there are students from UQAM. Bonjour. Bienvenue aussi parmi nous. C'est un grand plaisir de vous voir. You know, in August, I don't know if you were following a little bit the news in the university, but the university made an announcement. It's to commit to each new undergraduate student an opportunity to conduct an experiential learning during their programs at Concordia, their studies. It's a great, but when we think about experiential learning, it's not only about internships, because traveling and exploring the world and learning in a different environment, that's also great experiential learning opportunity. And when we think that, great, the university announced this in August, but actually FOFA was doing this already like a year ahead, and 2 years ahead. So big shout to FOFA for being ahead of the curve in this, and for involving not only Concordia students, but students from other sister universities in Montreal. So great for FOFA, great work. And when we think about the work, that the success of these programs, that's great, but I want to echo what Annie has mentioned about a lot of time, work, commitment that is behind all of these programs. And all of this is put by champion faculty members and colleagues, whether from FOFA or Concordia International. And I want to second that. And thank you again to all the champions who are faculty members and colleague staff who supported these programs and made this a success for all of you. So thanks again, félicitations, and curious to learn and hear about all the great things that you've done during your programs. Thank you.
Okay, it's me again, your MC. I just will reintroduce myself. I'm an associate dean in the Faculty of Fine Arts, and I'm responsible at the faculty level for supporting these field schools. So I've seen a lot of these presented to me on paper, but I'm so excited to see the people who've benefited from this. We've had 75 students this summer go on field schools that had, for the past 2 years, heartbreakingly had to be canceled or postponed. So very, very excited that this summer we could finally do what we've been planning to do now for a couple of years, and looking forward to hearing from all of you in the presentations that will follow. Before we get into hearing about Colombia and Mexico and Denmark and Iceland and Vermont and the US, I just wanted to echo Annie's thanks for the Peter Thompson Awards that allows more students to be able to take up these opportunities. And also a huge thank you to Amanda and Christopher in the Faculty of Fine Arts and Maral at Concordia International for the thoughtful event planning to make this Elsewhere festival possible today, and the Fourth Space team, of course, for hosting us. So thank you very much for that. And so the next little bit of our programming then is going to be hearing from the field school faculty and some of the students about their experiences this summer. And the first one I'd invite to come up, because I know you're teaching at 12:30, Ricardo, is Ricardo D'Alfaro, who ran 2 field schools this summer. He's a professor in the Department of Music. So the art, music, design, and science interaction field school in Bogota and Manizales in Colombia in July, and then the Sonic Visions New Music and Media Arts in Morelia, Mexico in August. So over to you, Ricardo. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much to everyone who has been supporting these field schools, from the Dean's Office, all levels at the university, Concord International. I'm not going to name everyone because there are a lot of people that you know who you are. This was a lot of work, and this started well before this year after the pandemic. We have a lot of activities and field schools before the pandemic. Also, I want to thank the support during the pandemic, because we even made some virtual field schools during the pandemic. And after, now we just came back a few weeks ago, one group from Colombia and one group from Mexico. If you can share the screen, Doug. Do you have it? It should be. It was sharing. Again? Okay. Okay, so went out because it was sharing before. Yeah. Yes. This one. Okay. It should be okay now because it was sharing before. Yeah. Okay, when you took it out. Okay. Okay, here we are. Okay, so I will show you a little bit about Colombia first, and then about Mexico too. And we have a lot of our students that were participating, not all of them, but many of them with projects back there and here, not only from Concordia, but also from UCAM, that were participating in both of the field schools. So let me show you a little bit about the first one. This one is one of the early ones in Manizales, Colombia, about 500,000 people there. The name is Art, Music, Design, and Science Interactions. And this is the place, I hope we can see it soon, yes. So this is the place arriving to Manizales in Colombia. And you cannot land when it's cloudy, when it's dark, when it's raining, because there is no radar in the place. So it is not an easy place to go. But it's an amazing place to go, really, because of the activities and because of the people. The support of the local people is unbelievable for all kind of things the students were needing, not only on the academic side, but in many different aspects. I mean, everything that was needed during the time they were there, and even after, some of them were staying after the field school. 2-3 days after the field school was ending, and this was the case in Manizales, for example, they were having some problems or some accident because they broke the leg or the hand or whatever, and this was after the field school, when they were just touring the city, and they were receiving a lot of help from the people there. Definitely, we were saying just before, definitely are not vacation. I mean, it's very nice, there is a lot of fun, but you work, it's unbelievable the amount of work. They can say that a little bit. I mean, they don't stop from very early in the morning until maybe midnight or maybe later. Something that probably you will never see here, it happens during the field school. So during 8 days, 9 days, 10 days, you need to work a lot, because at the end, we have usually a public presentation. So for example, in this case, what you can see in the pictures are during the International Image Festival in Manizales, and this is a festival attended by thousands of people. What you present there is being seen in many places. This is, for example, an outdoor performance with a laptop orchestra that was about 4 years ago, before the pandemic. But as I said, we also talk and take time for free. So we were going to thermal waters around. But in the middle of the group, you sit there, maybe there is an astrophysicist that if you need to contact him, probably he will never have the time to answer. But because he is there, he will take the time and he will talk with any of you during the time of the field school. Or in one of these photos, you have the mayor of the city. The mayor was receiving a group of the students because for them was very important to have this exchange. Or they were presenting, this is the stage of the Image Festival that was not only broadcasted, webcasted, but also was presented in front of a big theater with an attendance of about 1,400 more or less. So everyone needs to present, so everyone needs to do a public presentation. This was again in Manizales, and shortly after this, let me show you a little bit about, these are still in Manizales. This is about 2,200 meters above the level of the sea. It is a volcano near there, so it's a place where it could be shaking very often, like in other parts of Colombia, and you need to learn the safety issues in case something happens. So you need to be aware of many things. This is not Montreal, it's Colombia, and we were to Mexico, so life is a little bit different in these places. It's really beautiful, as you can see. This place that looks like the middle of the jungle, it is not, or it is at the same time, but it is 50 meters from the main building from the university in Manizales. So as you can see, they have like a kind of botanical garden where they can go, and some students were there for the whole night making recordings, for example. Or this can be seen around the city in specific places, of course. So these were all photos from places we were visiting in Manizales, also including this place that is one of the largest cultural centers in Colombia. It's a very, done by the architect, it's called Salmona, it's a very famous architect of Colombia. So, and this is the opening where all my students were participating, and this was the opening of this new cultural center in Colombia. So, just ending this part of Manizales, let me go a little bit to Bogota, where we were recently. This is the main campus of the Jorge Tadeo Lozano University in Bogota. This is one of the main buildings, and the auditorium, and I will go through some of the photos there. And several of the students that were there, we were 16 this time, a good number, 16, not easy to have 16 students moving around in Bogota, downtown Bogota. So this is the main campus of the Jorge Tadeo Lozano University. These are part of the facilities in the university, and they were really having access to not only presentations of faculty that they were coming during their vacations, they were coming just to offer lectures and workshops to our students, but also they were receiving like mentorships during each afternoon when they were working in their projects. They were receiving mentorships and individual support for every project they were producing. We were visiting places like the National Museum or the Cinematheque of Bogota that is brand new, and many, many other places, like we were going to the planetarium. We were in the area of many big universities of Colombia are staying. This is the planetarium, it's one of the largest one in America. And we were staying in this place. It's a very nice student residency. This was in two blocks from the main campus in Bogota. So this is the place where we were staying for the whole time in Bogota. The way we work, there are many different possibilities, and you can run your individual projects, but at the same time you can work, and you should work in collaborative projects. When we went to Bogota, students from Concordia, together with students from UCAM, were working also with students from Colombia. So they were doing these projects all together. And at the end of the week, they were presenting. This was the schedule for the week. As you can see, it's packed. There is not one time really, really, really free, but it is very well organized, but at the same time, very flexible. One thing you need to understand when you go in general to field school, and in particular to places like Colombia and Mexico, is that you need to adapt. Different culture, different ways of doing. So if you really want to do experiential learning, come to Colombia or Mexico, that you will see what means adapt. Okay, the kind of evaluation we are doing is like everyone needs to do a journal with reflections about the different activities, and also everyone is going to do a report and to present a project. The presentation of the project is done in a public setting before we end the field school, but for example, just to give you an idea, in a month, less than a month, in the week of 17th to 21st of October is the International Image Fest, and all the works of the students that were in Colombia are going to be presented online during the festival. And there is a very good exception to that, because a couple of the students are not going to be presenting online. They are going to receive at least one of them, but let's see if we can do something so 2 of them can go. So one of them for sure is going to receive support from the Canadian Embassy in Bogota that already committed the support to the Image Festival. So they are going to pay one of these students, so he or they will see, they can present in Bogota, in Colombia in the next month. So they will travel as a consequence of what they were showing in a public setting in the university in Bogota. So this can give you an idea of the kind of results we get from doing a field school. This is the first day we were talking about urban, how can we say that? I mean, how to do urban farming, so to generate your own food in a very safe and healthy way. So maybe some of our students can talk after a little bit. Maybe Mika, you could say something after about your project. Because we were talking during the project, during the field school, we were doing many, many different things, including a lot of very weird things. You will see an electronic banana there, for example. Yes, but food was crossing a lot of projects, but also artificial intelligence or music, soundscapes. I mean, the variety of projects was huge because they were attending workshops of science, new technologies, art, with architects, with designers, with chemical engineers. So it was a very, very wide array of things happening. So all these photos were taken in a few weeks ago in Bogota. And let me see. I'm okay with the time, so let me show you some more photos. All of these are from Bogota. This is one of the events where several of the students were presenting what's a kind of happening, food, electronics, dancing, and everything mixed. But this was, if I remember well, this was a Friday evening, ending late. That means that during Saturday morning, they were in need of presenting their public projects, yes, with a lot of faculty, etc., etc. So I think that not all of them were sleeping that night, but they were delivering on time. Can you believe it? I mean, yes, I'm happy this is being recorded. I mean, because delivering on time, that's something you need to learn when you do a field school. I think that's very experiential learning. So this is part of that evening. Faculties came, all the students were there. It was very, very interesting. And at the same time, we had these kind of things. So we were going to the Cinematheque, and we were having like workshops there, and we were working with biotextiles, for example. We have people working together. I mean, the chemical engineer presenting this together with a designer and an architect. And these are some photos of the projects, but you could go back there after and here too to see some of these projects. So this is one of the projects that was taking the attention of the people in Colombia, and this is the project that is going to bring back to Bogota in less than a month to some of our students. So they were doing really a huge variety of activities, including, as you can see, from the food, electronics, artificial intelligence, graffitis, dancing at the end, dancing in a special setting that has to do also with these images we are seeing here at your left. And this was about Colombia, and because we had several students from UCAM, from the 16 I think this time we have like 6 students from UCAM participating. So UCAM was already like making some publicity around our activity there and announcing what some of their students were in Colombia. And that this was organized, of course, by Concordia, etc. And this is the announcement of the International Image Fest that is going to be held in Manizales and Bogota from the 17th to 21st of October, so just 3-4 weeks from now. And as I said, different from anyone else in the festival, everyone goes through a peer review process in this festival, everyone, except if they are guests, international guests invited. Different from anyone else, the students from the field school have a special session just to show their projects online, except for the ones who are going to travel. Okay, so let me show something about Mexico, and maybe if any of you wants to say something about Colombia, come on. Yes, come. Yes, any of you who wants to say something, just come close, and I will start with Mexico meanwhile, okay? Clifton. Before, everyone was saying, yes, of course, we are going, but now, yes, yes, okay, let's do it now. Yes? We have a short time, whatever you want to say about the project.
Hi, my name is Natalie,
My name is Leonie.
and we're from UCAM. So we heard about the field school from one of our professor, and that was like, should I go here? Sorry. And that was our first time working with Concordia student and Concordia alone, and it was really a nice experience.
Yes, it was very different from what we did in Montreal. It was very fast, very, everybody was super happy to help us and bring us new ideas, and everything was very fast. That's what I remember from the experience. We were asking a question, and 2 minutes later we were getting up and going to another building to have an interview with someone from the university to help us in our research, and we couldn't do that here because it would be emails, and then 2 weeks later maybe an interview. But over there it was super fast, very easy. So that's what I remember from the experience.
Hi, my name is Theo. Mika. We work together in Colombia along with our group member Mike in the back here, and we worked on a kind of project that was a mixture of food, audio, visual stuff. We wanted it to be super interactive, so at the end, feel free to come over and check out our project, and we've got snacks and everything, and it's definitely a bit easier to explain kind of one-on-one, I think, but overall, our general idea was to take the idea of like a dining experience and expand it and kind of add like audio-visual components to it, so that kind of adds different elements to it, I guess. So for example, I created an Arduino circuit which basically connects an electrical circuit using living organisms like a plantain, and that conductance is measured into signals that can be made to music, basically. And then from that, we would have visuals that are reacting to the music, so it's just one big kind of experience because you're also eating at the same time. If you wanted to talk about it again.
Sure. Yeah, so the project really was centered around the ingredients. So for me, I was the cook, I guess you could say. I used ingredients native to Colombia to kind of make untraditional dishes, or untraditional Colombian dishes. And then, yeah, like Theo said, he took those ingredients and he sonified them using the Arduino board, which you guys are welcome to come check out and have a little bite of strudel as well. And then there's also a visual aspect that goes along with it. Kind of showing well, what is it now? It's changed a bit, but it's basically, maybe Mike can explain that actually.
Hey, sorry there, I missed my cue coming up. But yeah, for the visuals, initially we had a fourth member who's a little too busy to contribute for this session. So I designed a new set of visuals using a microscope, a digital microscope that's like zooming in on the plantain in this situation. And basically, I'm taking the audio data, mostly like amplitude and frequency ranges from the different audio signals that are being produced, and from the Arduino as well. And I'm using those to sort of change certain parameters like color and texture on the visuals. So that's what we have going on for the visual side of things.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. So let's see something about Mexico, and maybe one or more comments at the end. In the in the 10 minutes I still have here. So this is Mexico. The name of the field school is Sonic Visions Academy, New Music and Media Art. So it's a little bit more focused on music, but the people who attended the field school were not only coming from music, there were people coming from theater and from many other fields too. So it is a mix of music and media arts for people who knows a lot about music, but also for people who doesn't know about music. So this is part of Morelia, downtown Morelia. This is Michoacán. If you read sometimes in the news about Michoacán, that's the place where we were. So it's a wonderful place to be, very interesting. And we were there many times before with different groups. First, years ago, were only like small groups. We were attending the Sonic Visions Festival there. This is the place where this is in Mexico. And this is our UNESCO World Heritage Site in Mexico, Morelia. And it's a host, this city is a host for many, many different festivals, like the Festival of Cinema and Theater. There are like several interesting festivals there. So this is the city. And again, they were receiving a lot of support from faculties because we have, for example, people that are experts. For those of you who are very technical oriented, I mean, if you know what Max is, so sorry, going into something technical, but if you know about Max, it's a specific software that we use not only for music, but for everyone who is working on media arts in general. So, well, one of the world experts in Max is there, and he is just open to receive questions or doing individual mentorships to our students. So, okay, yes, we can see the images again. There are studios there where 2, 3, 1 student can book the studio and can work in different settings. There is an auditorium. We were visiting UNAM because it's part of the network. The UNAM is the largest university in Mexico. It's about 300,000 students and about 40-something thousand faculty. So, and this is the performance. Some of the students in one of the early versions of the field school were doing the last day of the field school in Morelia. This time we were in this hotel just facing the main square of Morelia. These pictures, I took it just a few weeks ago, about a month and a half ago. And each Saturday they have fireworks in the main square. So, and we were just in face of this place. I just went out of the hotel and I took these pictures. And we were working a lot. It doesn't look like that because a lot of places like people taking food and sharing good moments, but we were working a lot. We were visiting a lot of spaces and we were receiving workshops and lectures every morning, and the rest of the day were for individual projects, but all the time with support from the faculty there. All Dr. Colasanto, Dr. Rodrigo Sigal, Dr. Emma Weil. So both in Colombia and in Mexico, all PhDs and highest level artists that are really touring the world usually. So these were all taken in Morelia and as part of the CEMAS, the Mexican Center for Music and Sound Arts. And I'm going to show you some pictures that were taken also during their performance on the last day at CEMAS. So these are some of the photos of the pictures there. This is the ending gathering that we took in a very nice place in downtown Morelia. And also we were visiting Pátzcuaro, and sometimes we go to this city or we go to Tzintzantzún, that is another city near Morelia. So really the amount of activities is really wide. And it's interesting to see that yesterday was 21st, so yesterday, today, and tomorrow, the Sonic Visions Festival, International Festival, is running. And so in this festival, all of the students that were participating of the Mexico Field School are programmed, and the works they were doing during the field school are being now presented as part of the festival. So if you go to the website of the Sonic Visions Festival now, you will see that you can see all of their work, and it's not a distinction between they are students or not. They are like being shown as international guest artists, not bad. So, well, that's what's happening exactly at this time. You want to add something? We have time for both two short comments.
Okay, I'll say something really quick. Yeah, so I was a graduate, so I haven't been doing any of this for like 12 years. So it was actually good to be able to qualify for the program and go. And I would say for anybody who's thinking about going, the experience is like uncanny. You can't even compare it. Not only do you learn a whole bunch of things about the culture, you meet like, you know, really renowned teachers. You also learn about like things that you can't be taught in class. Like, so for the days that I've spent I went to Colombia and Mexico, both of them were unique experiences. Both I came away learning so much, like overall, and I feel that if anybody is looking to participate in the program, like it's honestly, like for me, is one of the the best, like those 2 weeks I did in both countries, like one of the best experiences I've ever had, and I've done a lot of things. So I think if anybody wants to look at our presentations after, you could get a little bit more details of what we did, but a lot of work goes into it, and I think it's one of the, I guess, experiences that would like just grow you not only as a student, but like even like just being more mindful and being more aware of like so many different things about like politics and the relationships with the people you meet. So I came away with like new contacts, new techniques to develop like my artistic talents in different areas. And yeah, I think all that together was priceless. So I definitely 100% recommend this program for anyone who's thinking about it. And, yeah.
You said everything, man. I think also it's a big luxury to have access to sonic and sound, to learn this through another point of view, like different from what we have been learning here in Concordia in Canada. And I think it's very interesting to learn more about the Latin American culture, which is very developed, and I think here it's very focused on like Occidental, I think, artists. So it was very interesting to receive references and learning techniques from elsewhere. And I think elsewhere. That's it. Thank you, and thank you, Ricardo, for making things happen.
Thank you. Okay, we don't have more time, so thank you so much. And I think that was enough for the two field schools. Thank you so much to everyone who supported this program.
Thank you, Ricardo. I'm so sorry that you can't stick around for some questions, but I know you need your students are waiting in your class. So, but this has been really amazing to listen to and to hear the really rich interdisciplinary experiences. And thank you to the students as well for speaking from the heart about that experience. I encourage all of you after these presentations, and I don't know that I said this initially, there's going to be, all of the tables will remain set up, and you can go and mingle and ask your questions one-on-one directly to the students who are here and the faculty who are here. So I encourage you to do that, please, after the presentations. So our next field school presenter is Mark Sussman from the Department of Theatre. And this was the Bread and Puppet Theatre Field School that took place in Vermont in the US at the end of May into beginning of June. So I will give you the floor. Oh, now I'm unmuted? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, now I have to make sure that I mute myself after
Okay.
leaving, so
Thanks,
go ahead.
Elaine. Thanks, everybody. Hi, I'm Mark Sussman, a professor in the Department of Theater. This is Pat Dale, who's one of the students who went on the field school this past summer at the Bread and Puppet Theater in the town of Glover, Vermont in the United States. I'll just give a little overview on the history of this field school because it has a bit of a longer duration, I think, than some of them. We started doing field schools with the Bread and Puppet Theater, which is located maybe about 2.5 hour drive from here, mostly to the east and just over the border into the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. When I came to Concordia, I had already a long history of working with that theater. And in 2008, we started doing field schools. We didn't call them that. We started doing off-campus classes with groups of theater students traveling to Glover and working with the director of that theater and the founder, Peter Schumann, who would join the theater faculty as a visiting artist. My role was to coordinate and drive and be cheerleader and logistics coordinator. And that's similar to what happened this past summer. So we ran those field schools every other year from 2008 to 2018, 6 times every other year in the summer. And then, of course, we're interrupted by the pandemic and came back this past May, June in 2022 with our largest group ever. Under the newly created field school program. You guys who are here, you may want to turn around to see the images because you can't. If you look at me, you won't see the images. But there's a few images on the screen of what it looks like. It's a rural part of Northeast Vermont, where this theater company, founded in 1963 by Peter and Elke Schumann, Peter, a German emigre to New York City, sculptor and dancer primarily, started a company in the Lower East Side of New York City that became known as Bread and Puppet Theater, doing shows in the street, became very well known in the 1960s for participating very visibly with large-scale sculptures and giant figures in anti-Vietnam War demonstrations and other sites of social engagement and conflict as well. So in Washington, D.C., at various marches and demonstrations, but also in theaters, in church basements, and in communities. So it's a very socially engaged theater. It's known for taking on political issues, but it's also known for being highly visually based. So Bread and Puppet, people sometimes wonder, is it a kids' theater? Is it like the Muppets? Like, what is it exactly? It's not quite, although we love the Muppets, nothing against the Muppets, but it's not that. It's puppetry in the lexicon of Bread and Puppet really means very large-scale visual images that move, and they move because humans move them, humans power them. In the case of Bread and Puppet Theater, they're often organizing parades, processional theater where the audience travels and follows a show through a landscape, or they do indoor shows that are more intimate and abstract and strange, or they can be highly narrative and based in storytelling. So for this field school, Peter Schumann, the director, wrote a little text at the beginning and sort of announced the theme of the show that our students would create was going to be called The Theory of Our Needs. And you can see there's a poster over there based on that. Bread and Puppet has a number of different kinds of activity. Theater performance is one, but also book and paper arts is another. And every show that gets made also has printed materials, printed images, banners and posters, books that get either handmade or printed. There's often music involved. So it's a very, how can I say, very kind of holistic art factory in many buildings on a farm that also grows food and tries to live and operate in an ecological way. And that's a whole nother story, but just briefly, I'll say Bread and Puppet was located in Vermont, moved from the nasty city in the 70s to the rural beauty of Northeast Vermont, in part as part of something called the Back to the Land movement, which was an early kind of eco-socialist vision of how people should live in harmony with the earth and with the with land and with food and stuff like that. So that's very much part of the mission and the daily life of the theater. We had 18 students who signed up, which was, as I said, our largest group. We were happy to have a couple of grad students this time for as a first, which was great. And we set off in a bus that left from right across the street in the last week of May. And the idea was to be in residence at Bread and Puppet for a little under 2 weeks, with a few tasks to accomplish. One was to create a new show on this theme, The Theory of Our Needs, that would then get performed at Bread and Puppet on the occasion of an annual thing they do at the beginning of every summer, which is the museum opening event. There's a very large old dairy barn that houses all of the puppets and the materials from different shows dating all the way back to the 60s. You should go if you're ever in that part of the world. It's always open. You can just go in, turn on the lights, visit yourself. There's no set hours. But there is an opening day in the first weekend of June every year. And the opening day includes different performances. And so the Concordia group was tasked with inventing a show based on this theme under Peter's direction. But there were other tasks as well. The other thing I'll say is that the Theory of Our Needs show was also part of a festival back here in Montreal the following day. So the performance happened twice, once in Glover, and then the next day here as part of Suoni per il Popolo Festival at Sala Rosa in Montreal, outdoors at the Entrepôt 77 space, which I'm sure most of you know, in Mile End. So what happens when we arrive as a group and get set up and learn about the daily work and daily life of Bread and Puppet Theater? It's a very complicated machine. There's a lot going on. And I'll let Pat take it over and talk about that. I'll advance to the next image.
Right. So, yes, I'm here to talk about kind of daily life vibe. As Mark said, it's a very complex machine and it's a very fast machine. Things happen quickly at a very rapid pace, and a lot is going on constantly. So a typical day starts at 9 a.m. You get your breakfast, oatmeal every day. We love it. And then we have a morning meeting to say, this is what is happening today. And before morning meeting, you don't really know what is going to happen that day. You kind of are thinking you're going to rehearse maybe one thing, and then maybe someone will say, actually, we can't do that. We need to do chores today. Or actually, we need to rehearse this other thing. And so it's all just based on being there, being ready, and being excited to do whatever the day holds for you. Yeah, that's a big thing. There's a saying in Vermont that the weather can change in exactly, 5 minutes? And that is very true. It can just start pouring rain out of nowhere, and so suddenly you have to rehearse your show in the barn, or that means let's go clean this room because we can't rehearse. which is super exciting, and we love it. And so the way things work on the farm, since it's the rural Northeast Kingdom of Vermont, there's no cell service on the farm, and there's no Wi-Fi on the farm, so you don't have your cell phone with you. And that proved to be a challenge at first. We all ended up buying watches, but the way that you can tell time is there's actually a big bell that will go off every couple hours just to say, it's lunchtime, so go get lunch. Or, oh, ding dong, it's rehearsal time, go rehearse. But then once you kind of settle in, you realize not having your cell phone is actually really awesome, and you get to just enjoy the rural area. And another thing too is there's actually no pre-recorded music either. This is part of Peter Schumann's attempt to decapitalize the space, and so he wants everyone to create the music there yourselves. So now you're taking technology out of the equation. You are living with a group of artists, and we're talking about the really amazing and fascinating, but also really weird artists. Some of the strangest people I've ever met lived there, and I love them to death. And you are just kind of constantly creating with each other, constantly thinking like, okay, well, we don't have pre-recorded music, we can't listen to Gaga, so let's play our own song. Let's write a song about the trees over there, why not? So if you'll see here, there's pictures of us on our orientation day. The museum picture is the one on the bottom right. The museum is crazy. It, like Mark said, has puppets from dating back to the 60s. Literally everywhere you look is filled with a space of puppetry, of history and art, which is so cool. It's almost overwhelming because it's so much work. And here we are actually making our own puppets. So a lot of the puppets are made with paper mache. So the way that works is you mix a bunch of clay and hay together, and you make your mold, and then you covered it in plastic and then paper mache, and a couple days later you have a puppet. So as you can see, we're all covered in clay and hay, and soon we'll all be covered in glue and paper and then paint. And it's great. So the way Bread and Puppet works is it's very messy. And since it's on a farm, you only get a shower once a week, which is a little tough. But there's lakes everywhere, so you are swimming constantly. If it is a hot day, you're gonna go for a swim maybe twice a day. If it's a really hot day, maybe you'll go 3 times. It's, what I loved about the experience is while there's so much to do on the farm, like literally endless possibilities, you can also leave and go do something else and explore the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont, which is actually a very lovely place. And we constantly felt very welcomed by the whole community, which was amazing. And so here are some pictures of us from rehearsals. I'm the one in the sad dog mask. So the way rehearsals work is, again, it's all very fast-paced. We will be doing something, and then 20 minutes later, Peter Schumann will say, okay, enough, we must be done with this, let's move on. And you move on and do something else. And it's honestly thrilling. While it can be quite chaotic and crazy, you just go with it, and eventually you really get into the groove of things, and you're like, yeah, fuck that. Oh, sorry. Let's go do something else. So some of these pictures here are from our first Saturday, where we did 2 parades that day, and another performance. It was just like, okay, today's Saturday, perform here, get in the bus, go somewhere else, perform here, get in the bus, go somewhere else. It was a really long day. We were all going a little crazy, but we were all so like riding on the high of like, yes, get the puppets, let's go. Can
I say, I'll add one thing. So as I started by saying, the goal, the overarching goal of the 2 weeks was to create this new show, which for Peter and the year-round company who are there, all the time, this was basically the first draft of a show that is going to continue to tour and be refined and developed over the course of the year. So in fact, the company's out on a coast-to-coast tour right now, and they're working with elements that were created by the students, which are being performed by other people now. But the early summer is a kind of time to start creating the elements of the new work that is then going to occupy the theater's work and its performance commitments over the course of the unfolding year. But interrupting that work are other performance gigs. So you're, as a group of students, what they found is that you think you're there to work on one show, which is sort of a normal, trajectory, except that, in 2 days we have to do the Hardwick Memorial Day Parade, which is something the theater does every year as a unit in a larger civic parade in a small town. And people expect Bread and Puppet to show up. And so a gang and friends and community members come and join the students. So the group of 18 Concordia students become a group of 40 or 50 people who take part in something, musicians, stilters, et cetera. So it becomes, the group is porous, and it can expand and contract based on the task of a current, what's going on a given day. And as Pat said, this day in the town of Hardwick began with a Memorial Day parade, and then everyone climbed in the bus after a meal and ended up doing another show, an old performance of a show of an old performance called Hallelujah, which is a cantastoria, which is another form that I won't bother to explain now. But basically, the students have to keep a lot in their heads. You have to know cues for a parade, you have to know choreography for a parade, but you also have to remember that you're in the process of helping to construct a new piece that's going to happen in 10 days. So it's a layered set of tasks and jobs, and pretty exciting. So I just put up a few more images to give you a sense of what rehearsing the theory of our needs looked like. You see one of the an indie PhD student in the center who got up on stilts. I think everybody got up on stilts for the first time, so that's pretty exciting. It's a lot of physical work, and you get sort of pushed, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, something about that too is it sounds very daunting. The fact that we had to have all this choreo just in our back of the head ready to go. But so I actually went back to Bread and Puppet later in the summer because I loved it that much. And I was there with people who had never done theater before, and everyone was still on the same level together, ready to work together. So even though it can sound very daunting and really fast, it's really a great welcoming space for somebody who is maybe new to theater and new to puppetry.
And I'll just close. There's a few books on the table and a few posters, if you'd like to come take a look and talk later. One thing that was very gratifying for me as a theater prof, it was that 3 of the full-time staff at the theater who worked with our field school group were alumni of Concordia who had gone back to work at Bread and Puppet after having done this field school when they were students. And they were, in leadership positions, directing and managing this large group and this complex organization. So for me, as you can imagine, that's quite gratifying to see people who get the bug and discover that for their early career, that someplace they want to go back and work. So thank you all for listening. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe, would you mind staying up for a minute? I might open the floor for a minute or two, if you don't mind. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm using this mic, so I'm a little nervous about it. You can hear me? So yeah, I was just asking if you'd mind sticking around for just a minute more. Maybe we can just see if there's any questions that are burning from the audience before we let you come back to the table. Does anybody want to ask a question now? Yeah, go ahead.
Is everyone acting in the group?
That's a good question. So there's no performance experience required to take part in Bread and Puppet's work usually, everybody performs in different ways, but in this kind of puppetry, very often you're wearing masks or you're carrying a large object. So it's a bit more about very simple everyday movements choreographed into groups. So it's not so much, look at me, I'm playing a character, you know, I'm Hamlet or whatever. I mean, which is great, like that's good too. But this is a bit different. When you think of acting, it's not exactly acting, but it is performing, which means moving, being physical. And of course, it's adaptable to any form of ability, any form of movement ability, you know. Yeah, it's very flexible in that sense.
And another thing too is the first day we got there, they gave us a really amazing chat about consent and how you're able to opt out of anything you want to. So if there's, since it's very political based work, if there's anything maybe something you don't agree with, or if you're like, this movement is too hard on my body, or if you're just not feeling it that day, you're able to opt out and be like, hey, I'm gonna go to the sewing room and I'm gonna make costumes for everybody instead. And that is totally welcome and very helpful always.
Other questions? Other questions? Yeah. Can you say a little louder? No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, it's a great place. As I said, we had an MFA student from Studio. Oh, sorry. Yes, the question was, do you have to be from a performance program to participate? And the answer is resolutely no. And in fact, people come to Bread and Puppet spends the year touring around the world, and so people from all over the world come there in the summers to be involved. And very often, they're folks from community organizations, political organizations. You know, they're not necessarily from, you know, the theater per se with a capital T. They're coming from all different. While we were there, there was a crew of print shop interns as well. So there was another internship sort of running simultaneously with these great weird people who were in the print shop every day, just making banners and posters and creating their own work. So yeah, in fact, yeah, it's really open to people who are interested in the work, and the background is not so important. Other questions? Okay.
Yeah, the interdisciplinary, I don't know if I'm on here, but the interdisciplinary nature of these, and also the mix of students that you mentioned as well. So you have PhD students with undergraduate students. Sounds like it'd be really fascinating.
Yeah. That may not always have been easy, but I think it was great. I think it was really good. And I think, you know, if/when we are able to do it again, I would love to open it up more, you know. Yeah, both in terms of discipline and in terms of level of study, for sure, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
And
Thanks.
again, you'll have a table, so
Yes.
please come and visit.
Thanks, Pat, for coming.
So our next presenters will be led by Linda Swanson from the Department of Studio Arts, Ceramic Art area. And this is the Ceramic Field School that took place at the Goldegard International Ceramic Research Center in Denmark from May 10th to the 31st.
Thank you, Elaine. And with me today, I have almost half of the field school here. Kim, Sarah, Meow, and Althea, and we've got one more member out in the audience. Owen is out there, and we'll be around the table after this presentation to be able to answer any questions you might have. We're here as a group because we had a very communal experience in our field school. In fact, I think it was almost an antidote to the pandemic to come together as a group to work together, eat together, sleep in the same house for 3 weeks. Very communal experience in an artist residency setting. So in the background, I'm going to play a video that Kim has prepared, and we'll just keep this running. If that's not playing, it doesn't seem to be playing on the screen. I might need some fourth space technical. Is it playing now? We'll just do it like this. Looks like if I make it full screen, it doesn't want to play. Not quite clearly. Okay, well, we'll just keep it going because these images are going to both jog our memories and kind of expose you a little bit to the atmosphere of the place. So we were at Guligor International Ceramic, the Ceramic Center, which was founded by artists, for artists, as a place where artists gather and meet and exchange and work. And while we think that an artist residency might be very individualistic, in fact, the residency at Guligor is very communal. And so there are a series of kilns. This is the pizza kiln. Oh, we're not seeing that quite yet. There we go. And wood firing and soda kilns, which require a large amount of labor in order to fire. So we're firing for sometimes 24, sometimes 30 hours, taking shifts and contributing to the work in a very experimental and kind of unpredictable form. Ceramics at its nature is very an unpredictable medium, and this added a whole nother layer to that. So we got to Guligor and started working right away. And we were in residence with other artists. So there were international artists whom we had heard of before or whom we hadn't and met for the first time. And we're working alongside them, we're living alongside them, and some of our most special exchanges happened around the meals. So there was a really wonderful relationship that evolved at the residency center between ceramics and food, and here you get to see some of the grounds. But one of our participants here, Sarah, needs to leave for class soon, so I'm just going to pass the microphone to her to share a little bit about how meaningful the experience was, or what her takeaway from the experience was.
So this experience was great as a transition between a course and a residency. So we had certain requirements that we had to do in terms of physical activities and studio duties, but we also had so much freedom to really deeply work on our own projects and talk to the other artists that were in residence. So this was a great experience to understand how to manage your time in a residency environment, and also how to apply for residency and what you can expect in that kind of environment. So after this experience, I was able to apply for another residency, and without this experience, I don't know that I would have felt as confident to go for something like that. And now that I have that experience, but also in a supported environment where I had peers who we all helped each other, late nights in the studios, firing, all that sort of stuff, it was a great experience. Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. I think one of the really important distinctions that Sarah is bringing up about this experience was that it wasn't course orientation, it was very much project-based. So very much like you're applying for an artist residency in a professional setting, the students prepared a project proposal, which was where the starting point for the project was, but it wasn't necessarily where the ending point was. And while there was a lot of work to do and a lot of communal feeling, there wasn't a kind of feeling of competition with each other, in a sense of doing a project better or faster. There was a lot of support for each other, and the competition kind of feeling maybe was to work more, just to work as much as possible. And that was really an exceptional opportunity at Guligor, because you're living basically 1 minute away from the studios. So you could wake up and you could go to the studios before breakfast, check on things throughout the day, stay late at night, and it really was different than packing up your belongings and getting to school and setting up and so forth. Really, things could just keep going in a very organic and fluid manner in terms of your work. So it was really an opportunity to spend a concentrated and dedicated amount of time on your work. So I think maybe I'll pass the microphone to Kim to talk a little bit about that.
Hi. So one of the things that was really like amazing about this residency was the artists that we met and the networking, and also just being exposed of different ways of approaching an art career, and hearing like everyone's different backgrounds. And we were in the residency with one of a ceramics artist who's kind of like a superstar in the ceramics world, which is Linda Bloomfield. And we're kind of a bit starstruck, and she ended up being like one of the most humbled people. And we would all have like dinner every day at 7 p.m. as a family, basically, like all coming together. We had like two people at times cooking for everyone. That way, everyone was buying groceries for everyone, which like on the economical side helped a lot. And yeah, we would just all chat and work together as a family. And Linda Bloomfield, which like as on the video, ended up being like a good friend of ours in the end. And we were a group that was very ambitious, and I say that because we ended up doing 3 wood firings in 3 weeks. In ceramics, maybe some of you know, maybe some of you don't know, but there is a lot of waiting time because of the drying process and the firings do take a lot of time. So when we got there, we were really lucky because they were loading the anagama kiln. That is a wood firing kiln, Japanese design, and it's really big, and it takes 72 hours to fire. So what that means is a wood kiln is like manually fired, so you have to stoke it with wood that we cut. Thanks to a wood cutter, we're not using an axe. To feed basically the kiln, and then raise the temperature at the level that it should, and hold it at the temperature that it's desired. Like what was the temperature? Like 1300 degrees. And so it was a lot of labor, and it was like a lot of organizations and sets of teams working together. And we had rotation. So right now in the video, that was everything that we loaded in the anagama. And it was an amazing experience. And the labor, it was a lot, but it was also something that we all really enjoyed because it was a really unique experience, especially having a kiln yard with so many different wood firings. It's not as accessible. Like it's not accessible here, and over there it was like the dream to be there and to witness the whole firing process. And so Linda asked me to talk a little bit about like how I prepared for this residency. So what I did, I brought these little 2 guys as an example. So what I did is that I had sculpted like a figure like this before. And I went to the digital lab fabrication here at Concordia, and they helped me scan my figure. And then with that, we did a 3D printing so that I could bring my 3D print to Denmark and make a mold out of it so that I can slip cast it and make multiples of these. Because again, 3 weeks is not a lot to try to make a lot of ceramics. So we were in the studio like up until like 4 a.m. sometimes, just like making as much work as we wanted, especially because we wanted to load 3 wood firing kilns, which is a lot of space that we need to fill. And so, to speak a little bit on the technical side of it, this was one of the slip casts that I did, and this was a soda firing kiln that we put it in. So right now it's on the video, and it's showing how at the end of the process, we have the technician who's spraying the soda inside the kiln, and basically that's going to come and glaze the pieces that it touches, and then does these really beautiful, unique effects. And these 2 figures were part of this. And the reason why this one is different is because this is actually porcelain colored clay that I stained, and it did like this really beautiful like drip with the blue and the black. And you can come look at it closer over there. Yeah. Do you want to talk?
Okay, it's my turn now. So I would say for me, what I remember the most from the whole residency experience is the fire. And I totally fell in love with playing with fire. And we played with fire not only with the clay, but also with food. And I think I would say it's pretty well known in the ceramic world that you know, making ceramics and making food is sort of like always related in a way. It's like it starts with wedging the clay. When you're kneading the clay, it's almost like you're making pastry or you're making bread. It has a very similar sort of process to each other, and both processes requires love, patience, and yeah, I guess most importantly, love. And so I'd like to introduce this little, it might be a little too tiny for you to see from there, but feel free to check it out at our table after the presentation. So it's just a cookbook that we made, and includes the recipes that we collected from the artists and the students that were in the residency together during the period. Since everyone has their like cooking shifts, so you know, we got to try so many different people's interpretation on food. And so yeah, we just collected the picture of the artists and their works, as well as their contributed recipes. It's like a little souvenir from the time that we spent together. And yeah, thanks. I will pass the mic to Althea.
Thank you. I don't really know what to say after all that. You guys covered it all. I just want to say my experience as an artist was mostly painting based. Being able to kind of relate to a medium like clay through ceramics, especially in this context, was such an amazing experience to kind of bring the artist out of the studio into like a very communal aspect and reality, which was so helpful, because I realized as an artist, a lot of the work you do is in your mind, in a studio, by yourself, but this really, you're able to work on your own projects, but in the context of a group, so you never really were alone. And the ability to have access to the studio 24 hours, and that there's always people around working on their own creations was very contagious, and learning a lot from the other artists that were there was, for me, like a really big takeaway. Just meeting artists from around the world. There was someone from South Africa, Italy, Japan, Denmark, North Macedonia, Sweden, the States, even Canada, and the UK, Charlie. Yeah, there was just, so all these people who were relating to the same material that we're working with all had very different ways to manipulate the material, and just to realize how broad and rich the history and the relation you can have to your art practice was really fascinating. And also, because the residency was in a research center, we were able to kind of see the history of the artists that were before us. There was pretty much like a really crazy artifact library that was existing from other residents that were there, and we could it was kind of like the catacombs, where you'd go under and like you would see like all these like treasures of artifacts and art and beautiful, amazing work. You're just like, what? Of people that were there before us. And not only being on location at the residency at Guyagard, but the chance to explore. We went on field trips to the Clay Museum. We went to Copenhagen, where we visited some studios and artists who were working with their practice there, where I was able to kind of see the relationship that the culture has towards ceramics, which really inspired me here in Montreal, because I'm actually in the process of opening my own ceramic art gallery, and this experience helped me a lot to kind of see the kind of setting and realize the need a little bit to kind of open this up. And just the connections that I've met in Denmark from the artists there. We're still talking at least once a week about how to collaborate together in the future to create potential residencies, artist residencies here in Montreal? How can our work be like across oceans? How can we kind of bridge the space between us to create like a community that's closer knit? And this experience, I wouldn't have had access to that otherwise, and yeah.
Thank you, all of you, for sharing. I'll just sum up that an artist residency is a wonderful opportunity to place yourself in another unfamiliar setting so that that setting can feed your practice and you can respond. And I think that's what Denmark did for all of us, both in art and design. Even just the architecture of the village where we were staying was, a different kind of context to react to. And then the other part of an artist residency, which I think you heard echoed in many of the students' comments, is the other artists that you meet as part of the experience. It's really a way to bridge beyond those that we're familiar with and really to connect with other cultures, other movements that are happening in art around the world. Because so these places become like a little international magnet and locus for international exchange.
Can I say one more thing? I just wanted to show this. I wanted to ask if anyone can guess what this is. This is seaweed that was plucked from the North Sea. It's called an organic burnout, where you dip it in a porcelain slip and then we fired it in the kiln. And that's something that I learned there to do personal research. Anyway, interesting, you can learn new things.
You can answer the question.
Oh yeah.
If there are any. Is there time for questions, or are we out of time?
No, I'd like questions if possible from the audience, and I have one.
Hi. That's a really great question. We had a range of students with experience. And so throughout the field school, we led a series of workshops to introduce both the various spaces, because the equipment was all new for everyone, but also to introduce processes that were unfamiliar. So the students could try out things that they don't normally do as well. And we were pretty much available, both myself as the instructor and our technician, who was really invaluable, you saw it in a lot of the video, to help students with, at any point in time, 7 a.m. or midnight, with whatever they were working on if they got stuck. So there isn't a lot of prerequisite for experience. Maybe Althea was...
Yeah, I was just gonna add. Yeah, I didn't have a lot of experience myself. I think the most important is to have curiosity and to want to learn, because there's so many people around you that are there to help, and just to kind of have an idea, and even if people say that idea is not going to work, do it anyway.
Hi.
Did you bring all of the pieces back? Yeah.
Thank you.
Is it working?
I did hear the question. Did we bring all the work back?
Mic working? Is it working? Oh, okay.
Yep. Oh, there you go.
So did you bring all the pieces back, and how did you do that, if you did?
It's a very practical question. We knew that shipping is quite expensive from Denmark, and rather than investing in shipping, we brought extra suitcases and paid for extra luggage, and packed the work basically within all of our clothing instead of wasting any space. So that pretty much worked for the amount of time that we were there and what we could produce. We also had a kind of exchange at the end of the residency for work that either couldn't fit or that we didn't like as much as other things, and we ended up with a lot of each other's work at the end too, for things that we could fit in and bring back. Yeah.
Also, Linda gave us a little demo on how to pack, and she bought the supplies for us, so she was a big help for that.
So my personal approach regarding that problem was just to make works that are very super easy to pack. So that was the idea that I started working with. Yeah.
Yes. No, you don't.
So
Yeah, the
question was,
nature
you
of the field schools are interdisciplinary. So there is a portfolio application process, but you don't have to be in a particular program. Oh. So that looks like it's related to the last question. And so there's a visual portfolio that you submit, and then your project proposal. And those are reviewed for feasibility and creativity.
Do you mind just repeating the question just for the people on Zoom? Because they can't hear without the mics.
That's a great idea. So I was just reading from the chat on Zoom. It's I'm curious what the application and selection process is for the ceramic residency. So again, it's a portfolio and project proposal.
Maybe I could just add to that there's a website where you can go and it'll give you all the details. Am I muted? Oh. Sorry, everybody, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. I just wanted to say that there's a website with all of those details as well, so that as the field schools are launched each summer, we have all of the details for each of the field schools, which is a little bit different in terms of application process. So.
Perfect. We're back at the table there. Like everyone, if you have more questions, come back and we'd be happy to chat.
Thank you so much. Sorry about the audiovisual complications I seem to be causing, so I apologize for that, but I'm glad you're able to ask a few questions. And as Linda says, everybody is staying for a little bit longer after this for you to go and have a chat. So our last presentation will be from Kathleen Vaughn, who's a professor in the Art Education Department, who has run Imagining Iceland Field School in the Icelandic Textile Center in Blönduós, Iceland, and this happened for the month of June this summer. So I'll invite Kathleen and students to join me.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathleen, and indeed, the Iceland Field School is a project that's immensely close to my heart and a wonderful opportunity, I hope, that you will hear from for Concordia students as well. I was teaching this morning, and so our presentation was in the able hands of two of the Iceland Field School alumni. And we have more in the room. I know that people will be happy to answer questions and tell you all about it, but would you like me to start, or do you want to go? Okay. So the Iceland Field School is held in Blönduós, which is 4 hours north of Reykjavik, practically at the Arctic Circle in the northwest part of Iceland. At the Icelandic Textile Center itself is run as a residency all year round. I was there myself as an artist for a residency in June of 2016 and loved it so much. I thought, how can I go back and not try to duplicate something that was so transformational and phenomenal? And so I thought, I know, I'll bring the students with me. And so thanks to the great support of Concordia and of course the Icelanders themselves, we've been able to take over the residency for the month of June. We occupy every single available bed, as people can attest. So there's 16 students there with me. We do a series of workshops that help students orient themselves to some of the questions around the place, the textile issues, there's digital tech, there's handmade tech, there's farm-oriented activities, there's activities in the community such as the Knit Fest that happens every year in Blönduós, where people from all over Iceland come to sell wool and talk about knitting and have a competition. This year's was who knits the best balaclava, which was pretty interesting. We got to help install and support the Knit Fest for the community. But mostly the students make their own work. So that after a period of orientation, getting used to 24-hour daylight during the month of June, the longest days of the year. Of course, it's pretty well 24-hour, having a chance to get your membership to the pool, so you get the chance to swim in the Icelandic pools, which are famous worldwide, as part of your daily routine. And then you dig into your own work and build on the workshops that you have learned or not. Students are BFA to PhD. We have BFA and MA students here today. PhD, sorry, don't want to demote you. PhD and MA students here today. And so there's some BFA students here in the room as well, an MFA grad. So it's based on a portfolio and really an inclination of what you want to do. And that, as in Linda's field school, that likely changes once you get there and have the opportunity to have your hands in materials and bask in the sun and the waters. So with that little intro, I'm happy to answer questions as we go, but over to you.
Thank you. So there are visuals. I'm just not sure how. We're just going to wait on the visuals. Oh, here we go. Thank you. All right. So I wanted to talk about, from the point of view of the pedagogical aspect of things, not just like what I made, but what this meant to me in terms of pedagogy. So here we have, hello. There we go. So this is our wonderful studio facing the ocean, which was wonderful and very inspiring. And I wanted to talk a bit about the opportunity that we had to work, to be inspired by working both indoors and outdoors. So I don't have a textile background, but I was proposing to work with the land more, but as well as participate in all the textile workshops, obviously, to see again what would happen, how that would inspire me, because as the other school, we had to propose a project, but it was a loose proposition. So what I really appreciate is that we had no preconceived notion of what was going to be successful or what would be correct. Our final project could evolve and change direction. There was actually no pressure to produce something completely finished as well. I really appreciated that. And then the sense of collegiality that we had with each other, as Kathleen mentioned, we were all from different backgrounds and different levels of school, but that didn't hinder anyone. There was no sense of competition, much like you talked about in the Denmark Field School. I really felt that it was a sense of community. The competition aspect was removed, and everyone's goals were different, yet we were really interested in everybody's work. And so this kind of promoted this sort of hierarchical system where everyone's on the same level. It didn't matter if you were PhD or BFA or anything like that. And we could ask people to help no matter. So I found myself asking someone who's 30 years younger than me for help a lot, and there's no problem in doing in that. And then speaking for myself, and maybe for Jackie, I never worried about my grade. Never ever worried about what grade I was going to get, because I was really there to learn and I was there to absorb and to experiment. So slide. I don't think my clicker is working. No? Okay, so again, experimenting with both textiles, which I was not familiar with, and also being able to do my work in drawing, which I'll show you in a sec. The value of experimentation and taking creative risks, embracing opportunities to explore freely, and the idea that gestation is really important in art making. We really had that opportunity, because it was a month long, to really let things sink in, not rush, 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 go, 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 finish on time. It was a really wonderful opportunity to have like a gestational moments. Try and, oops, there we go. So again, no textile experience, and I was really, really happy to try anything and everything that was offered to me by the experts that were there, the workshops that we had, and whether or not that was going to inform my work, I was just going to let it happen, to see what would happen and to really experiment. And so I was also able to really experience the land, again, because it was such a long residency. I was really able to go out there and draw outside many, many, many times at different locations. And I don't know if I can click on, but I made a map on Google Maps to sort of pinpoint everywhere I went in the town. So we have Jacob, the next slide. Or can we get to the map? Oh, there we go. So there's just, if you click on one of the little icons, you can see where I was and what I drew, what that view was. And then again, I was able to really explore the land and the place. It's not a big place. And then the sunlight, of course, the sunlight is 24 hours, so it really gave me a chance to explore at all hours. Next slide, please. So Jacob isn't with us today, but he really wanted to touch on this idea of slowing down, that he really appreciated the fact that we could slow down and that gestational period. And he looked at it from the point of view of slow tourism and slow art making, the length of time away and the dedication to making in this environment allowed for the opportunity to slow down, to gain and share new knowledge from and with others you're with, the easing it into the process. It's not, you get there and go make right away. It's a lot of reflecting in a risk-free environment without normal time constraints. And he appreciated being transplanted into a new place for such a length of time because it allowed the opportunity to really dig deep into the place itself. And then he took on a very, very ambitious and large project, but again, he didn't need to finish it. It was a process. He's still working on it. And then they extend the conversation with himself as a maker, he really appreciated, but also with the surroundings to allow for a deeper possible connection with the environment we were in. And so that's where I will hand it over to Jackie to talk about the environment itself.
Hello. So, as you guys probably know, Iceland is known for its nature, the landscape, and it's also one of the most sustainable countries in the world. And so, during this process of going to this field school, I had the opportunity to really explore Iceland. As Kathleen and Nancy has mentioned, it is 24 hours of sunlight. So at first, you're kind of just a little scared because you're like, this is so surreal, like what's happening? But you really get that connection with nature because you have all hours of day to see it. One of the things that I found myself doing after dinner is to do a lot of hikes and walks. So we got to explore the mountains, the hills, the waterfalls, even black sand beaches are all over there. The space that we were in was in Blendos, and Blendos basically was a very open space, like both literally, metaphorically, and also physically. So the space was you're able to walk around, meet the community, and really get to know everyone. As Kathleen mentioned, there's Knit Fest that happens in June, which we jokingly call it the Coachella of Iceland. So basically we call it Knitchella, where everybody comes and we just got to really interact with the community. We got to help out with them by setting up and taking it down. And that really just bonded. Even though we didn't speak Icelandic, they're very welcoming. And in the NetFest event, there's also lecture talks. They're all in Icelandic, unfortunately, but it's still definitely something I recommend to go see. This is, in the picture you see right here, that is the sunset. That's actually at 12 a.m. So you imagine that, and even if you are upset because it looks like it's cloudy and rainy, you actually get both rainbow and sunset at the same time in the same landscape. So I think the next line you get to see like a rainbow, maybe in the next one. Yeah, that's the rainbow. So on that side it was kind of raining, but you can see a rainbow. On the other side it's sunsetting. So you kind of come in this place where it's kind of so surreal, and you really get to connect with nature, not like what we'll have in, let's say, in other cities. So I really enjoy that experience. I think I'm good talking with the nature. I guess it's question time. I guess if we have any questions or anybody has anything to ask. Yes.
Okay, I'm just thinking, so this might be a silly question, but you said that your primary practice is drawing. Oh, okay. Whoa, now I feel like I'm on the spot. Okay. You said your primary practice is drawing, and
that like your practice doesn't necessarily need to be fiber arts in order to do the field school. If you could just like expand on that a bit.
Yeah, thanks. That's a really good question. I'd say probably about half our people would describe themselves as fiber artists, and the others are creative people in some form or another. So they created works in video, in language, in projection and installation, in performance. Everybody has the opportunity / obligation to attend the workshops to try stuff in textiles. So there's a spinning workshop, a tapestry weaving workshop, and a natural dye workshop. And part of that is so that you can connect with the amazing Icelandic experts and start to feel the connection to place and the history and the cultural practices that go with the place. But you don't have any obligation to use those practices in what you develop for yourselves. Some people did, some people did and some people didn't. So it's a whole range of things. It doesn't matter. The first year we did this in 2018, I had somebody whose primary field of study was museum practice, teaching and learning in museums. So there is a museum, the Icelandic Textile Museum, right next door, that's a resource and that also gives lots of histories around textiles. But she also spent a little bit of time in Reykjavik as part of the field school. That would, be separate from what we would offer, but she's there in Iceland, so she went to meet with curators and museum educators in some of the main institutions there. So anything is possible. The idea is to apply with a portfolio of 5 items. They can be text, they can be visual, performed, time-based, textile, not textile, and to have a reason for coming. And so the reason is specific to place with a kind of sustainability inflection. The Icelandic Textile Center doesn't allow any chemical processes in its facilities, and because, as you saw, it's a shared studio, there are no solvents in use, so if you want to paint, you work in watercolor or maybe in acrylic. The dyes are all natural dyes, there are no chemical dyes on site. And we had a talk by Zoom by Andri Sneer Magnusson, who is a well-known Icelandic environmental writer who ran for and almost won the presidency there some years back. And so, just to bring in some of those specifics and to inflect whatever it is you might like to do there.
Okay, cool. So like the portfolio and like the project that you pitch doesn't necessarily need to like be fiber arts based?
No.
But you still get to like participate in all the workshops and stuff?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
If you wanted to come and do fiberglass sculpting, it's the wrong place.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And is it the same for all the field schools? I just missed the beginning, so I didn't.
I can't speak for all the field schools, I'm afraid.
The field schools are largely interdisciplinary, but you
Okay.
need to do some research when you're applying to find that out when they're offered, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so we have, as part of the curriculum, we were able to contribute to a blog, and you can have access to it. I think there's a link from the Iceland Field School Concordia page. Is there a link?
There is icelandfieldschool.ca is the field school site that I developed. And so on that, there is a blog that is students' projects from 2018, and then post-pandemic, there's this big gap, 2022. And so each student was asked to do 2 blog posts of any kind, as long as it was polite and public, during the course of their residency to explore something about being there, doing their work. And that's very diverse and will give you a really good flavor for the kinds of work that gets produced there.
So that's icelandfieldschool.ca.
Yeah. Thank you, Douglas. Oh, will it be happening again this summer? Probably not. Probably not, no. The field school, the Iceland Field School specifically, was originally designed to run every 2 years with this dastardly interruption by the pandemic. And so the intention is to go back in 2024. We basically take over their residency in what many think of as the best month of the year. And so the Icelanders are very happy to receive us, but I've yet to dare ask that we have that privilege of the best every year, so we have it every second year. So the answer is this summer, almost certainly not, but 2024 is where we're aiming.
Thank you so much. Maybe what we could do is invite the other field school leads to come up, and we'll continue the Q&A. So in case you have questions that have lingered from before, and especially for anybody joining us from elsewhere on the web, they could ask questions as well. So I'd invite you all to join us. And I see that there was a hand up maybe for Kathleen while we gather. So go ahead.
I just wanted to know, what is the weather like in the summer?
Yeah, so you're going to the Arctic Circle. So I think that should be a kind of a clue that it's not sandals weather. When we were there, it was very sunny, warmish first part of the month, and a less sunny and less and cooler second part. So I'd say think between 10 and 15 degrees. There were some days where it looked like it might snow, but it didn't. So there's on the Icelandic Textile Center's website, there's this fabulous document called the Book of Answers. And this is one thing they created, and in it they say, no sandals. And then they move on from there, no matter what time of year, unless you're wearing them inside.
So I guess if there's any questions from those of you who are not live in person with us, now would be a good opportunity, because I think we'll be wrapping this part up soon so that those who are here can go and mingle and have those conversations we've been talking about. So don't know if there's anybody joining us from afar who has a question. Maybe while we wait to see if anyone formulates a question, I guess I was really struck by food as a connector across all of these presentations, and time as well, sort of the expansion of time and the compression of time that everybody seemed to talk about, being really, really busy, but also losing track of time and having the bell toll, you know, to keep them on time for things, which was really interesting too, and the sense of community and exchange. So I just wanted to thank you very much for the work that you've done in generating those experiences for our students. Oh, somebody's asking if we talked about a Japan summer field school. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have the Japan field school faculty member and students come, but there was a field school that took place in Japan, and there's some details about that archived on the website, so that would be a place to look if you're looking for more details about that. I guess, sorry, did you want to say something, Mark? Yeah. I guess the only thing I would say, just to wrap it up, is just that there is an information session about field schools happening on this September 27th for faculty members who are interested in proposing a field school for next summer. And the deadline to propose those field schools is October 7th. So I'm looking forward to seeing what will be proposed for next year. And I'm really grateful to all of you for joining us to celebrate what you've done this summer after 2 years of waiting for this to happen. So thank you all for joining us and for your questions. And there's food at the back, so please help yourselves and make your way through the tables to mingle and have conversations with the students and the faculty who are here. We also have Concordia International here if you have questions along those lines. And our student academic services people are here as well. So if you're thinking about how do I register for things like this, they can take those.
Can I say just one more thing about Iceland?
Of course. Yeah.
So during the month of October, we're having an exhibition on the second floor of the EV building of works that were created by the students and the field school. So there will be wall works within the EV 619 space, which is the main office of art education. And in the vitrine that's opposite the dean's area, there will be works that showcase well in a vitrine. And we're aiming for a catalog and a finissage event on October 27th, where hopefully some of our students who are not speaking but who are here in town, and even those who are out of town, can participate perhaps via Zoom, and you can hear and see more of what they've actually accomplished, which was really extraordinary. The Icelanders were so impressed by what the students did that they basically said to any of them that they could come back and do an internship instead of a residency, pay for 1 month, get the second month free. So I thought that was a pretty great credit to our amazing students.
Thank you, Kathleen. That's a great way to end the formal presentation portion of the event. And again, thank you very much. Please mingle and enjoy. And thank you to everybody who's joined us from afar.
We hope that you've got some good information and we've piqued your interest. So thanks again, and thank you all.